Hello, my name is Matthias and welcome to the weekly Wildcard draft, where I take a look at what I think is the best squad to have in Fantasy Premier League going forward until the end of the season. There's only 2 game weeks left now of the season, Game Week 37 and Game Week 38. And Game Week 37 is a double game week where 4 teams have 2 matches to play. And that is Brighton, Man City, Man United and Chelsea. I mentioned Chelsea last because they are the least important because they have 2 really difficult matches. So we're not going to have any Chelsea players, but we're going to have several players from the other 3 teams that have double game weeks. So let's just go ahead and look into the drafts. This is sort of like a NBA or NFL style draft where the number 1 player I mentioned, the number 1 player I pick, is the player I deem the most important player to have for the final 2 game weeks of the season. And the 15th player is the player that I am kind of the most unsure about, but usually it's just the Leicester backup goalkeeper. So yeah, that's kind of become a staple in this team. But anyways, the further along the picks go, the more unsure I am about them in my team. But we'll go with the first pick first, and that is Erling Braut Haaland, who I'm not unsure about at all. He's been number 1 pick for most of the season, really, and for good reason. He's still only 12.2, 12.3, I think, in total in price. He should be like, hopefully he's 14 million next season. I hope so, because otherwise we're just going to have the same problem again. Everyone's going to have him and it's going to be kind of boring. But that's just Haaland this season. He's been amazing. He's still amazing. Hasn't hit like the proper highs that he had earlier in the season, the last few game weeks, but I still think he is a threat to score a hat-trick in pretty much any given game. So Chelsea and Brighton, easily see him score like 4 or 5 goals in those 2 games put together. Then Brentford away in the final match, he could also score goals there. The only thing with Haaland that is a slight worry is the fact that City kind of have the league wrapped up at this point, so maybe he'll get rested. Maybe they won't risk him in terms of injury for the end of the season. But I just think Haaland has played. He's been like the one constant with City. It's him and Rodri and Ederson sometimes, who have been like the consistent players. So I think Haaland's just still going to play. Obviously, he wants to get as many goals as possible before the end of the season. He broke the record already, but he wants to make that as good of a record as possible, because you never know. He might not be able to score as many goals next season as well, but most likely he will. But anyways, also, while we're at the subject, the only Norwegian player in the squad this time, Ødegaard, is not in this. I'm filming this on the 17th of May, which is the National Day of Norway. So yeah, congrats to anyone celebrating. I'm wearing red for my country, but I'm also podcasting during 17th of May. So whatever, not podcasting. I'm making a weekly Wildcard draft, but I'm also going to podcast later on today when we do the FPL Score podcast with Kevin and Kimo. So yeah, anyway, stay tuned for that. Next guy on the weekly Wildcard draft is Mohamed Salah. Also FPL royalty. He's been the most consistent and best Fantasy Premier League player of all time, and he keeps playing really well. He got three assists against Leicester. Still looks amazing. They don't have a double game week, but I still think Salah is essential to have. He's just so good. He keeps scoring, and what looked like kind of like a down season has turned into another fantastic season from Mohamed Salah, who's one of the greatest of all time in Fantasy Premier League. He is the greatest of all time, and in Premier League he is one of the greatest of all time. So not really much to say about that. I think Liverpool can win both those last games. They are still hunting for 4th place, and Salah is going to play 100%, so Salah is a great option. Next up is Bruno Fernandes, which is kind of surprising considering he keeps blanking every single game week, but he also keeps producing amazing numbers. And I think he has like 10 big chances created in the last few game weeks, and he's only received 2 assists from it. So he's been really unlucky. He had the most expected goals last time around against Wolves as well. He had the 1.02, I think, in expected goals or expected goal involvement. And yeah, he looks amazing. He's on penalties. The fixtures speak for themselves. Bournemouth away, Chelsea at home, Fulham at home. Really amazing fixtures. You should probably triple up on Man United players, and currently I think he's the most secure option for Man United, considering he's on penalties and he's not been injured like Rashford has been. But we'll get onto Rashford later on in this drafts. Next up is also a Man United player, and it's also a new boy, as you can see from the green color on his name. He wasn't in the squad last week, but Luke Shaw definitely deserves to be there now. He played as a left back against Wolverhampton and looked amazing. Should have had more points than he had, but he still got 8 points, 3 bonus points. He got a stupid yellow card in the end, but he also should have had an assist. He's amazing as left back. I think he's one of the best FPL options, like in general, when he's played left back this season, he's been amazing in FPL. So yeah, I think he's an easy pick, and I think he's the best defender to have going forward. But as we'll see, there's another defender that's also pretty good, and that's Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's been fantastic. He scored a nice free kick as well last time around against Leicester. Keeps getting assists. He gets some clean sheets now as well. And yeah, Liverpool are just a really good team to target currently, even though they don't have a double game week. That's sort of why they aren't preferred ahead of the guys ahead of them. But still, Liverpool players are a must to have. I really wish I went for Trent Alexander-Arnold personally as well. I went for Kevin De Bruyne a couple game weeks ago with the extra money I had, and that has once again proven to be a poor decision on my part this season. But Trent, can't really go wrong with him. He's also Fantasy Premier League royalty, really amazing. It's going to be interesting to see his price next season as well. I think he should still be 7.5, potentially. I think 7.5 is a good price for him still, as he's proven this season. He's actually been pretty fairly priced, because at some points he's been really good, and at some points he has been avoidable in FPL this season. I think he's been in my team like a couple of game weeks here and there, and that's really how it should be with most players. It shouldn't be like one player that gets picked every single time like Haaland has been this season. But yeah, moving on to the next player, it is Alexander Isak. He was second place last week, and that was because he's in a double game week 36. He still hasn't played the second match, but he played on the wing in the first match, or played alongside Wilson at least. He played kind of more centrally than compared to what he has done previously with Wilson. Previously with Wilson, he's played more on the left, but he played more centrally last time, and he won a penalty, and he almost scored when they got the second penalty. Sadly for Isak, Wilson took both penalties, so he didn't get a monster haul for all of us that captained him, but he still might turn that around against Brighton and score a couple goals there. And that's also why I prefer him over Wilson. I think he is more nailed in terms of playing time. So I think most likely they're going to start both of them from now until the end of the season. But I still prefer Isak. I still think he's a better player. And yeah, I'm gotta back my boy Isak, because I've been backing him all season, really. Well, not all season, but ever since he came back from injury, I've been backing him. So yeah, I still think Isak is amazing value, even though he doesn't have a double game week. He has Leicester at home, which is one of the best fixtures to have, and then Chelsea away as well. Pretty easy match. So Isak is a good player to have in your squad. Number 7 pick, and it is Eberechi Eze. Should have been in my squad earlier in the season. Haven't really owned him all season. I was going to own him in Game Week 32 for the blank game week where I took a free hit, but I didn't include him, and he only got 3 points in that match. So he's been sort of inconsistent in terms of FPL points. He's been getting monster hauls like last time. He scored 2 goals, one amazing goal. The second goal was really beautiful. But yeah, he's been a new player since Roy Hodgson took over, and he's really broken out as like a defining player for Crystal Palace. He's been their best player by far. So SA, looking at the fixtures as well, Fulham away, Nottingham Forest at home, really easy fixtures. So I think he can score a couple more goals in the final 2 game weeks of the season, and so that's why he's in the squad. He doesn't have a double game week, of course, but still, I think Eze is a great option. Next up, we have Pervis Estupiñán, who was one of the biggest heroes in this previous game week. He still hasn't concluded the game week because he hasn't played against Newcastle, but he got 16 points, I think, in the first match. Estupiñán did against Arsenal away, which is amazing. That's really, really, really good from Estupiñán, especially scoring when they're up 2-0, and then in injury time he still goes into the box and scores a goal. That shows you why I've had so much faith in Estupiñán for the last 6, 7, 8 game weeks of the season. He's been pretty much a regular in this weekly wildcard draft segment, and that's because he's so attacking. He plays for a really good team, and yeah, he's just proven to be a really good player. So he has a better double game week this time around with Southampton at home, which is an amazing fixture, and then City at home. I mean, it's not really that big of a double game week considering they play Man City, but you never know. Man City have already won the league at that point, so they might be resting players, and Estupiñán might be amazing. So perhaps he should be even higher in this weekly wildcard draft, Estupiñán. But yeah, I think he is the best Brighton option currently. That's why he's the number 1 selected Brighton player. But we'll get more Brighton players as we go along as well. But first, we're going to talk about Marcus Rashford. Pretty new news today is that Rashford is back in training. He's pictured training with Man United players, so it seems like he's going to be back. Ten Hag also mentioned that he was sort of doubtful for the last game, which he didn't play in against Wolverhampton, but that also means that he should be back pretty soon, and it seems like he's back already. And with the fixtures that they have, it's just amazing. You really need to go for him. Originally, I actually had Bukayo Saka in this spot at number 9. I think Arsenal have good fixtures. I think they want to end their season on a high. So I think Saka or Ødegaard or one of those Arsenal midfielders, potentially even Trossard if Martinelli is injured. I think those guys are really good options as well. But if Rashford is fit to play, he's really a must in this team. So he should probably be higher on the list if he is fit to play. But saying that, he's also been not the best in the last few game weeks, even before the injury. He struggled a bit. He didn't really do that well against West Ham in the final match before he got injured. And yeah, but he's still an amazing player. People talk about him like, oh, he had a purple patch. Sure, he had like he had really good form right after the World Cup and what was amazing, but he's still an amazing player. Like, it's not just a purple patch. It's not just like a Almiron type of thing where he wasn't that good to begin with, because he's a really good player. So I think he's going to be really good going forward as well, especially if he is 100% healthy now. He is back in training. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to start, but assuming he starts, I think he's kind of a must to have still in the team, considering his price as well. He's so cheap compared to what it should be. Also going to be interesting to see what he is priced next season, but we're going to get more into player prices in the off-season as well, where I'm going to try to predict some prices, say what I think should be their prices, and potentially even talk a bit about the pricing structure in Fantasy Premier League as well, but that's an entirely separate thing. That's a bit of a tangent. So moving on, we have Kaoru Mitoma, who is also a great player to have. Double game week, like I said, double game week against Man City. Might not be the biggest double game week, but you never know. They might beat Man City, and Mitoma has been really good still. I think he's still playing amazingly, even though he hasn't gotten that many FPL returns lately, because he is such an amazing player. He's such a good dribbler, and yeah, we know what he can do in Fantasy Premier League. Even without the best expected goal numbers, he can still score a goal or two. So yeah, I think Mitoma is a great option. Second best option for Brighton. And yeah, you really should have Brighton players in your squad, because they still have more fixtures than anyone else, or the same as Man United, City, and Chelsea, but they still have more fixtures than the rest of the teams. So Mitoma is such a cheap and great Fantasy Premier League option. So you should still have him, even though he hasn't really performed that well lately. That's why I prefer the 4 other midfielders above him. But still, Mitoma is the best Brighton midfielder and a great option. We have another fantastic Brighton option, and that is Enciso, who's been probably their best player like the last few game weeks. He probably should have had more Fantasy Premier League points as well, but he keeps getting goals, keeps getting assists and FPL returns. So I think Enciso is a great third striker option. He's also super cheap. He's 4.6, I believe. So yeah, pretty much anyone can get him into their team. So I think if you have someone like Solly March, like me, I have Solly March and I have 2 transfers. So there's a good chance I might sell Solly March and get Enciso and have him sort of as a differential Brighton option, because a lot of people have Mitoma, McAllister, and Estepinian or Steele or someone like that. So Enciso could be a nice differential option as well if you compare yourself to the players that have 3 Brighton players. So if you have the chance to get Enciso in for a different Brighton player, then he's a good option. I think he's the 3rd best Brighton option currently, because he's still not 100% proven. He might not play both matches from start, but I think he's going to start against Southampton, and yeah, he's playing the number 10 role that McAllister played in previously, and that has hurt McAllister's FPL production, but it has enhanced Enciso's talents really. So I think he's a fun little differential pick. Moving on, we have Ederson. This is the 2nd City player I have, because I don't really trust any of the other City players to play in both matches in the double game week. It seems like they are susceptible to be rotated, all the City players. So why not go with the reliable Ederson, who got 8 points now? He's always been such a reliable player in FPL. I know a lot of happy owners that have had him all season or plenty of this season, and have been really happy with his production. So jokes aside, he is actually still a good option. City, they just keep conceding stupid goals, but lately it seems like they have sort of fixed themselves a little bit. They've had 2 clean sheets in the last few matches, one against West Ham and one against Everton. Sadly for Ederson, he didn't play against West Ham, so he didn't get the clean sheet, but that's sort of what it's been like for Ederson the last 3 seasons. Some people have said that they are afraid that Ederson might be rotated, but I think he's pretty consistently been getting 37 matches in Premier League the last few seasons. So I think he's going to end up with 37 matches this time around as well. I think he's going to play in all 3 matches at the end of the season. So I think he is one of the more reliable City players to have, and that is kind of crazy considering what Ederson has done this season. But yeah, I don't actually have a third City player because yeah, I've been burned by them personally. I have Kevin De Bruyne and John Stones, and they never play. Stones has also been in the weekly wildcard draft a couple times the last few game weeks, but he's not in the squad now because he just doesn't play. So yeah. We have another player that is another Arsenal player. It is Kivior in defense. He's only 4.0 and he's a nailed starter now for Arsenal. He's been much better than Rob Holding. I think that might have been like if they had played Kivior rather than playing Holding when Saliba was injured, potentially they might have won the league by now because Kivior has been much better than Holding. He looks decent, not that much of an attacking threat at the moment, but he can still get 2 clean sheets against Nottingham Forest and Wolverhampton, and it's also just like a final pick to have, someone you can have on your bench if someone doesn't play, if Rashford is injured for some reason, if one of the City players don't play, Kivior can come in and probably get a clean sheet, even though Arsenal have been pretty poor defensively at the end of the season. But yeah, Kivior is such a cheap option. I think he's a good player to have. Finally, we have another kind of differential bench defender option, and that is Yerry Mina. He recently returned from injury, and he has been a revelation for Everton defensively. He's been really good, and we know about Yerry Mina's goal threat. When he came to the Premier League, we all talked about how he could score like 4 or 5 goals in the Premier League. After he had that amazing World Cup run where he scored a lot of goals for Colombia. So Yerry Mina is a fun little differential pick. They have really good fixtures, Wolverhampton and Bournemouth. They are still fighting relegation, so they still have everything to play for. So I think Yerry Mina is one of those players that has the most potential to get like a 15-pointer towards the end of the season. But we have 3 other really good defensive options from start. Shaw, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Estepinian. So most likely Mina won't get to play. Potentially play him ahead of a midfielder. But yeah, if you're in a pinch and you need someone to step in, I think Yerry Mina is a really good option. So Everton have proven that they are really good on set pieces, and Yerry Mina is one of the best set piece threats around. So that's why I have him included. Finally, we have just Everson. I always have a Leicester goalkeeper as the final pick. At least this season, Leicester have been pretty poor. They might go down, but he's the cheapest goalkeeper you can get. So that's why he's in the squad. You could also upgrade him. If you don't feel 100% safe about Ederson starting, then you could get someone like Johnston from Crystal Palace, who most likely plays and has decent fixtures, as you can see from SS fixtures, Fulham away and Nottingham Forest at home. So Johnston is also a good pick, but I gotta keep tradition going with having the backup goalkeeper having the backup goalkeeper in the weekly wildcard squad, the weekly wildcard draft, be Everson. So that's why he's included. But as you can see, we have a couple of green names here: Ederson, Shaw, Kivior, Mina, Fernandes, Eze, and Enciso. They are all new players from last week. So that means that some players have dropped out as well. So we're going to end this installment of the weekly wildcard draft by talking about those guys. And here you can see on your left, you can see the red names. Those are the players that dropped out from last week. So I'm going to talk about them individually as well. We have McAllister. Like I said, I prefer Enciso because Enciso is playing in the number 10 role that McAllister usually played in now. But you never know with McAllister. He can score a penalty here and there. And he probably wants to end his Brighton run on a high because he's most likely going to Liverpool for about £70 million, which is kind of crazy. If you had said that a year ago, that he would go for £70 million after after this season, people wouldn't believe you. But he's a World Cup winner. He's a great player. But sadly, when he doesn't play as number 10 for Brighton, he's not that good value. So that's why Enciso has taken a spot. Then we mentioned Stones. Just doesn't play. Can't really trust him to play. He's one of the more injury-prone players for City as well. So they're like, I understand why they want to save him for potential Champions League matches. They still might go to the Champions League final as well. I'm filming this before they play the second match against Real Madrid. So yeah, I think Stones, if he plays every game, he's probably the best defensive option remaining. But you can't really trust him to play, so that's why he's dropped out, because he hasn't played in the last 2 game weeks. So yeah. We have Callum Wilson, who had an amazing game in the last game week, so it shouldn't really be left out. But the thing with Newcastle is that they have only 2 fixtures left. They don't have a double game week like they had in game week 36, and the lack of a double game week is why he's dropped out of the squad. That also accounts for Fabian Schär, who was the 13th pick. He also doesn't have more matches than the rest of the players in Fantasy Premier League, so that's why they drop out. I still prefer Isak or Wilson. You could always go with Wilson. He's slightly more expensive, so that's also counted into this. And also because I just want to back Isak, that's why I have Isak over Wilson. Riyad Mahrez as well. He was my City pick in midfield. He's been pretty good in Fantasy Premier League lately. He's been getting starts. He's been getting a lot of assists for Gundogan. Gundogan is obviously also another player I could have chosen, but I think he's also going to be kind of rested now going forward because he's a first-team player for them. He's a starting 11 player for Man City, so I don't get why he wouldn't be rested in the final few games as well. That's why I don't have Gundogan, because Gundogan has been amazing. If you picked him up before last game week, he's received 13 points and then 19 points now. He's been amazing, and it might be the end of his City career as well. So yeah, Gundogan is a nice option. But Mahrez, I think he is kind of likely to start the next few matches. So if I had to pick a City midfielder, I'd probably pick him. But I really like all 5 of my midfielders, so I don't really... And also, I like the Arsenal midfielders as well, so I don't really need to run the risk of having rotation with City players, so that's why Mahrez is out. Diogo Dalot, speaking of rotation, he didn't play last game week. Shaw did play as left back, and Dalot didn't. So with 3 Man United spots only, Fernandes, Rashford, and Shaw make the most sense. Dalot hasn't been like a consistent player for Man United. He hasn't been starting every game week the last few game weeks because Wan-Bissaka has been amazing at right back this season. So yeah, that's why Dalot is not included. Talked about Shaw already, and Fraser Forster. He proved last time around why he isn't a reliable FPL goalkeeper. Conceded a really weak free kick, so yeah, he was also just a cheap option that I needed last week because I didn't have that much money left in the bank. But now that I have more money left in the bank, I can go with someone like Ederson, who I think is a better pick for the end of the season. So that concludes the weekly wildcard drafts. These have been all the players. I think you can target Arsenal players, like I said a couple times now. Ødegaard, Saka, even Gabriel Jesus, they might be good options as well. So yeah, you could go with those players. You can also go with another City player if you want to dare going with a City rotational guy. If you hit the lottery with the City players, they can be really good. But I just don't trust anyone apart from Haaland and probably Ederson in goal. But you can't really trust Ederson either. So yeah. But other than that, no Chelsea players. Like I said, terrible fixtures. That's mostly why. So yeah, no Chelsea players. But you have several Brighton players. You have 3 Man United players. You have also the couple of City players. So you have some really good double game week options, and then you have some nice differentials for the single game weeks as well. So I think that's a really good team to have going forward in Fantasy Premier League, and that's what I make these videos for. But again, rambling like always at the end of videos, and yeah, I'll see you around next time. Happy 17th of May for all Norwegians celebrating, and happy days for anyone else. Happy days for me with the FPL season coming to an end. Should also mention, in Fantasy Eliteserien, which is the Norwegian fantasy league, I ended up, I think it was 22nd for this round in total. So really happy about my game week in Fantasy Eliteserien. I'm doing much better there. So that's what's going to be my focus in terms of FPL selections in the summer, but I'm also going to have a lot of FPL content coming up. So yeah, stay tuned, subscribe, and like all that good stuff. And I'll see you next time. Bye.